Hi guys, so Boris Johnson is going to be following the footsteps of 30p Lee Anderson and Right Honourable Gentleman from the 19th century Jacob Rees-Mogg and have his own GB News show. Now there's a slight difference here because Johnson isn't a sitting MP, so he wouldn't be breaching or bending any Ofcom rules. But the fact that the disgraced former Prime Minister is being given another platform didn't bother Lucy Frazer, the Culture Secretary. She actually welcomed it. Have a listen.
There's a newcomer to the media world, Boris Johnson. A young chap called Boris Johnson is going to try his hand
I've
at
heard
TV
of him,
presenting.
yes.
Yeah. Will you be watching?
So what I think as Secretary of State for Culture and Media is that it's really important that we have multiplicity of channels and people appearing on them, because I think that's really important for our media landscape, that we have pluralism within the media. And I think, there's definitely going to be an audience for Boris Johnson and I'm sure many people will be tuning in and listening.
Will you, though?
Be tuning in and listening. Well, I've spent many years working with Boris Johnson.
So you've already heard enough.
I definitely wouldn't say that, but I'm sure that he'll have a really big audience on GB News.
Your role is overseeing the media sector. Are you comfortable with the vice chairman of the Tory party interviewing cabinet ministers on the TV? Is that doing any service at all to viewers to have Conservative MPs interviewing Conservative MPs on the TV?
Well, I do think that it's valuable that we do have a pluralistic media landscape where we hear a lot of different voices.
Yes, but not the voices of MPs. The voices of MPs should be heard in the House of Commons, in Parliament. That's what their job is. That should be their job. Their primary job is to represent their constituents, to ask questions on behalf of their constituents, not to ask questions of fellow MPs and push a narrative. Because that's what they're doing. That's why Jacob Rees-Mogg has been hired for GB News. That's why Jacob Rees-Mogg interviews other MPs. That's why Lee Anderson interviews other MPs. To push a narrative, to push a conservative narrative. What I find so funny about all of this is you have people like Lee Anderson and Jacob Rees-Mogg and other MPs who have second jobs, who are working on the side, who will complain that their workload is so heavy that they need to be paid more. They will say that MPs aren't paid enough, they should get a pay rise because of the massive workload they have. But they seem to have enough time to host TV shows. Jacob Rees-Mogg, I don't know how many nights he works for GB News. Isn't he supposed to be representing his constituents? Lee Anderson, isn't he supposed to be representing his constituents? Lee Anderson actually has 3 jobs. He's the deputy chairman, he's an MP, and he runs his own show on GB News. And somehow he has time to listen to the constituents and answer questions that they have. It's a farce. And this also applies to Labour MPs. Why are Labour MPs hosting shows on LBC, for example, which will be brought up here? They're supposed to be representing their constituents. If they don't like it, if they don't like that job, if it doesn't pay enough, find another job.
What GB News is doing is having a current affairs programme, which they can, under the Broadcasting Code, absolutely have politicians discussing current affairs. What they can't do is have politicians breaking news. And Ofcom, obviously, that's something that Ofcom looks at.
What a pathetic rule. Oh, as long as Jacob Rees-Mogg and Lee Anderson aren't breaking news, they can say whatever the hell they like. They can interview fellow MPs and pretend it's like some sort of grilling, when, of course, they're pushing a narrative.
You'd think it was a bit odd, though, if there was a Labour MP interviewing the Shadow Home Secretary on TV, wouldn't you?
Well, there are Labour MPs who host programmes. I mean,
they do host programmes.
David Lammy,
yes.
LBC, West Streeting stood in the other day. We had Angela Rayner last week. So, this is something that politicians are doing.
Notice she avoided the question. It doesn't seem to apply to Labour MPs. I don't know of a case where David Lammy has interviewed another Labour MP. I haven't seen that happen. It seems to be just happening on the Tory side, so she's, of course, ignoring that.
I presume they're doing it because those in charge of those channels think that there is a need and call for it, and people are interested in hearing those views. And as I said,
they can hear those views in Parliament. Why do we need to hear Lee Anderson's views outside Parliament? Why do we need to hear Jacob Rees-Mogg's views outside Parliament, or even David Lammy's views outside Parliament? Their job is to represent their constituents. It's not to host a TV show. It's not to interview people. It's not to talk about how their son became vegetarian or something like that. That's not their job. They're paid over £80,000 a year to represent their constituents. They keep complaining, as I said, that they don't have enough time, that they're not paid enough. Do something else, or represent your constituents. This corrupts the system, because what happens is people watch these shows and they believe, well, this is their job. Their job is to deliver the news. Their job is to interview fellow MPs, is to grill, commentators or experts or whoever. That's not their job. Their job is to represent their constituents, to speak up on behalf of their constituents in Parliament, to ask questions on behalf of their constituents in Parliament, and to be held to account if they're a member of government. How is Lee Anderson being held to account when he broadcasts his opinion on GB News? He's not. And the fact that he's paid more as a GB News host than as an MP shows where his loyalties are. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.